The Story King, where every tale holds a secret worth discovering. Shattered trust. The wind screamed as Lyra's body plummeted through the darkness, her final thought a bitter realization: they never loved me at all. The cliff edge disappeared above her, along with the faces of those she'd called family. Her sister's satisfied smirk, her father's cold, unblinking stare, the council members who'd stood silent as witnesses to her execution. All of them had watched as she was shoved backward into the abyss, their lies still echoing in her ears. Traitor, they'd called her. Witch who poisoned the Luna. But Lyra knew the truth. She'd been framed. The fall seemed endless. Wind tore at her ceremonial dress, the same white gown she'd worn just hours ago when they'd honored her as the pack's healer. Now it would be her burial shroud. She closed her eyes, surrendering to gravity's merciless pull. Then, impact, but not the shattering of bones she'd expected. Instead, something solid caught her, arms like steel bands wrapping around her body. The momentum sent them both tumbling across rough ground, rolling until they crashed against a rocky outcrop. Lyra gasped, her lungs burning as she tried to comprehend survival. Above her, supporting his weight on his forearms to keep from crushing her, was a man. No, not just a man. Even in the darkness, she recognized the aura of absolute power that radiated from him. His eyes glowed molten gold in the shadows, and when he spoke, his voice resonated with an ancient authority that made her wolf whimper in submission. Breathe, he commanded, and her body obeyed before her mind caught up. She dragged in air, her chest heaving. Who? Kael Darkwood. His jaw tightened. Alpha King of the Northern Territories. Lyra's blood turned to ice. The Alpha King, the most feared ruler in all the Shifter lands. Rumors painted him as a monster who'd slaughtered entire packs that defied him, a tyrant who showed no mercy. And he'd been waiting at the bottom of her execution cliff. Why? The word barely escaped her lips. Kael shifted, moving to sit beside her but keeping one hand on her wrist, as if afraid she might disappear. Because I've been tracking a conspiracy for 6 months, and every thread led back to the Silvermoon Pack. To a healer who was supposedly helping them commit murder. I didn't. I know. His voice cut through her protest. I've been watching you, Lyra Ashwood. You're no killer. The revelation stunned her into silence. He'd been watching her. Kael stood, pulling her up with surprising gentleness. His hand lingered at her elbow, steadying her when she swayed. Can you walk? She nodded, though everything hurt. Her ankle throbbed, and her shoulder burned where she'd struck the ground, but nothing felt broken. Miraculously, impossibly, she'd survived. Good, we don't have much time. Kael's gaze swept upward toward the cliff edge. They'll send scouts down to confirm your death. We need to move. Where? Somewhere they'll never find you. He started forward, then paused when she didn't follow. When he looked back, his expression had softened fractionally. I give you my word, Lyra. I mean you no harm. Your word. Bitterness crept into her voice. I was just betrayed by people who swore to protect me. Why should I trust an Alpha King with a reputation for cruelty? Something flickered in his golden eyes, pain, perhaps, or understanding. Because I'm offering you something they never did, the truth, and a chance at revenge. The word hung between them like a promise and a threat. Lyra's wolf stirred, urging her forward. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, powerful beyond measure. But those same instincts whispered that he wouldn't hurt her. That, somehow, impossibly, she was safe with him. She took a step, then another. Kael's shoulders relaxed slightly, and he turned to lead her through the darkness. His pace was measured, considerate of her injuries. Occasionally, his hand would reach back to help her over difficult terrain, his touch careful despite the obvious strength in his grip. They walked in silence for nearly an hour before emerging into a small clearing where a cave entrance yawned like an open mouth. Kael ducked inside, and after a moment's hesitation, Lyra followed. He'd been here before, that much was obvious. Supplies were stacked neatly in one corner, food, water, medical supplies, and blankets. A small fire pit had been prepared in the center, and within minutes, Kael had flames crackling to life. In the firelight, Lyra finally got a clear look at him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell past his collar and a face that would have been beautiful if not for the harsh lines of command and the old scars that traced his jaw. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, every gesture controlled and purposeful. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a flat rock near the fire. "Let me see your injuries." "I can. You're a healer who just fell off a cliff. Sit." This time it was pure alpha command, and her body complied before she could protest. Kael knelt before her, his large hands moving to examine her ankle with surprising delicacy. His touch sent sparks racing up her leg, and she had to fight not to jerk away, not from pain, but from the unexpected warmth that flooded through her. "Sprained, not broken," he murmured. "You'll need to stay off it for a few days." His fingers moved to her shoulder, gently probing the bruised area. "This will heal on its own. You were lucky." "Lucky?" Lyra couldn't help the hysterical laugh that bubbled up. "I was pushed off a cliff by my own pack." "Lucky," Kael repeated, his eyes meeting hers, "that I was there to catch you." The intensity in his gaze stole her breath. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Kael cleared his throat and stood, putting distance between them. "Tell me what happened," he said, his back to her as he retrieved a blanket. "Everything. Start from the beginning." So she did. Lyra told him about Luna Catherine's sudden illness, how she'd been called to treat her. About the strange symptoms that didn't match any natural poison. How she'd requested tests, insisted they bring in another healer for a second opinion. Her sister Vera had volunteered, had examined the Luna and declared that Lyra's treatment was making things worse. "She died the next day," Lyra whispered. "And they found foxglove in my healing room, a poison I would never use." Vera told the pack I'd been acting strange, that I'd been jealous of Luna Catherine's position. "My father, the beater," her voice cracked, "he was the first to call for my execution." Kael turned back to her, his expression dark. "Vera, your sister is the pack's secondary healer." "Yes, and she had access to your healing room." "Of course, we shared." Understanding dawned. "She planted the poison, and likely administered it to the Luna herself." Kael moved closer, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. "Your sister has been in contact with a rogue faction that's been trying to destabilize pack leadership across the territories. They promise power to those willing to betray their own. Luna Catherine wasn't their first victim. She's just the first where I couldn't prevent the murder. But you prevented mine. I wasn't going to let you die for crimes you didn't commit." He sat beside her, the blanket still in his hands. "Here, you're shivering." She hadn't noticed the cold, but now that he mentioned it, she couldn't stop. Trembling, Kael wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, his hands lingering for just a moment. "Why?" Lyra asked softly. "Why do you care? You're an alpha king. I'm just a disgraced healer from a minor pack." Kael was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by those who should protect you. Because I've watched too many innocent people die while the guilty escape justice." He paused. "And because from the moment I first saw you, 3 months ago when I was investigating your pack undercover, I knew you were different. Genuine, kind in a world that rewards cruelty." Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. "You've been watching me for 3 months. Investigating," he corrected, but there was a hint of color on his cheeks. "I needed to know if you were part of the conspiracy or a potential victim. The more I observed, the more I realized." He trailed off, jaw clenching. "Realized what?" Kael turned to face her fully, and the vulnerability in his expression shocked her. "That I couldn't let them kill you. That I would do anything to keep you safe, even if it meant revealing my presence before I'd gathered enough evidence to bring down the entire network. You compromised your investigation for me. I'd compromise kingdoms for you." The words came out fierce, almost angry, as if he resented the admission. I know it's insane. I know we've barely spoken. But there's something about you, Lyra Ashwood, that makes me want to burn down the world to keep you from harm. She should have been terrified. This was the Alpha King, confessing an obsession with her. Instead, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. What happens now? She whispered. Kael's expression hardened with determination. Now, we make them pay. All of them. Your sister, your father, the council members who stood by and watched. We gather evidence, build our case, and when the time is right, we destroy them. And me, what happens to me? His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away, before his fingers brushed her cheek with devastating gentleness. You stay with me, under my protection, if you'll have it. Lyra leaned into his touch, and she saw something in his eyes ignite. I'll have it, she breathed. On one condition. Anything. Help me save my pack. The innocent ones who had no idea what Vera was doing. They don't deserve to suffer for her crimes. Kael smiled then, a real smile that transformed his harsh features into something breathtaking. See, this is why I knew you were special. Even after everything, you still care about them. Someone has to. Then we'll save them together. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I promise you, Lyra, you will have justice, and you'll never be alone again. For the first time since the moment she'd felt hands on her back, shoving her toward death, Lyra felt something other than despair. She felt hope, and perhaps, in the steady warmth of Kael's gaze, the beginning of something even more dangerous than betrayal. Something like love. Outside the cave, the wind howled. But inside, wrapped in blankets and protected by the most powerful shifter in the realm, Lyra Ashwood began to plan her resurrection. They had tried to kill her. Instead, they'd given her an Alpha King as an ally. Her enemies would soon learn their fatal mistake. The Story King. Subscribe for tales that will keep you awake long after the final word.